My name is Clenton Farquharson, and yes, I'm a disabled person. I have over 20 years of lived experience of drawing on systems in our society to live a meaningful and fulfilling life as a disabled person. My areas of work and focus has been on life chances of fairness, equity, a just society, and anti-oppression, and diversity and inclusion, and the multiple disadvantages which relies heavily on the idea of intersectionality. And I think of myself as a doorway opening to society that sees differently, looks different, and thinks different, and is different and embraces differences. I'd like to talk to you about what are you going to do to create, enable, and unleash the potential in people to flourish, especially for disabled people to lead change. What I have learned in my life's journey so far as a disabled person is disability issues are a human rights issue. Most from a life-changing experience, and some I heard in passing, and many of it I'm still practicing. But all of them I do believe are true. Now, this may be truth to me, but I don't think that makes them mine, because you cannot own the truth. So please think of these as signposts, points of view, or assistance along the way that give some science to uncovering us as human beings. They are yours to steal, they are yours to share, and liken to your own lives, to personally apply in your own lives, in your own way, should you choose to. So here I go. Imagine an Indonesia in which the vast majority of disabled people wake up every day inspired to go to work, feel safe and valued while they are there, and return home at the end of the day fulfilled, where people look out for each other, where we all give and take, where success is measured in selfless acts, where kindness and potential is the philosophy of life. So my question to you all, how do you enable potential to ignite? My thinking on this is, no one knows how much human potential will be developed. How we understand and treat the awareness of potential. If we harness the potential of everyone in our society and ensure they have an equality of opportunity to achieve positions of influence, we will become better and fairer countries. The more we can understand about the local concepts and beliefs and about disability in different countries, the more we can ensure that individuals with disability have a voice as we move with increasing speed into the future world. Because disability is an every part of society. Our society are built on stories. These stories of our past, present and future that provides a scaffolding for our political systems, for our social structures, and for our own thinking. They shape how we understand our relationships, what relationships we value and pursue, how we classify us and them, how we treat others, and our expectations of our society and civic duties. Let's just think about that for a moment. They shape how we understand our relationships, what relationships we value and pursue, how we classified us and them, how we treat others, and our expectations of our society and civic duty. So, how people with disabilities in Indonesia are valued. How are they valued? What relationships do people with disabilities have in Indonesia society? And how are people with disabilities in Indonesia treated? Those are my two questions that I ask. And my third question is, and what are the expectations for people with disabilities in Indonesia? Is it the sky's the limit? If not, what is hindering that? If we can deny rights to people based on their country of origin, race, sexuality, or gender identity and disability is only possible due to a set of beliefs or stories about one group being more deserving than another. If you would, let's take this journey with me. It seems we have been measured almost all of our lives when we are young children, with our height, our weight. As we grow, it becomes our speed and our strengths. And even in school, there are test scores, and today, with our salaries and job performances. It seems as though if those personal averages are almost always used to measure where we are in comparison to our peers. And I think we should look at that a little differently. That personal average is just that. It's something very personal and it's for you. And I think if you focus on that and work to build that, you can really start to accomplish something really amazingly, the things that we can do. But first, we need to understand the impact of labels, of assumptions, of perspective. And if you think about it, we all love a good label, don't we? We all love them. I've had all sorts of labels attached to me over the years. A label of disabled person, person with disability, post-traumatic stress disorder, or known as PTSD, and manic depressive, and not forgetting what's been happening in the pandemic, vulnerable. Disability is unusual in the degree to which those outside of the label could fall into the label at any time. Because anyone can become disabled, or non-disabled people face decisions that suggest the future possibility of disability. Moments when they have reason to think about disability arising in their lives. But the trouble with labels, and I'd like to pause and ask a question to you here. What triggers social identity we experience? And what I mean is your sense of who you are. Remember, the trouble with labels, and all the labels that I've talked about today, is the trouble with them is that sometimes it's impossible to see through the label to the real person. And when you only can see the label, you can't, if you not careful, you'll make assumptions and get the wrong perspectives. I believe we become who we are through others. Language is the most powerful tool we have in bringing about change. As the language we use around disability rights has changed, so has people's attitudes. I'd like to ask you another question for you to think about. The language you use to describe disability, does it help or hinder your understanding of disability? We need to be aware as people and professionals of the influence of language around disability in our society and workplace. We are more comfortable when we are in full command of the facts, so much that we try to stick with the familiar rather than risk an unsettling discovery about the extent of our own ignorance, indifference, and inaction. We prefer to remain in the realms of the tried, tested, and traditional. This way, we can keep our prejudice intact and maintain an illusion of control. We are being asked to venture onto the unknown territory, where we move building walls to building bridges of understanding, unity, and urgency to releasing the potential of people with disabilities. We should look at people who have impairments or long-term conditions with their direct and first-hand experience of past or present, of their social issues or social issues, or injustice or injustices. which can be displayed in their knowledge, perspective, which gives insight and understanding gathered through their lived experience, which can give and be perceived innovative, creating solutions and diverse thinking into society and workplace. How do you harness this? And I'd like to ask you to pause for thought on this. Those in power, or governments, institutions, or organisations and businesses, and those with influence, we call leaders, can fix the environment, not people. They create and enable the culture. I'll say it again. Fix the environment, not people. You cannot change someone's personality. You cannot fix people. They don't need fixing. What you can do is create the environment where it makes it easy for people to do the behaviours that you're looking for. Let me introduce a way of being that I think is very important here, which is the social model of disability. The social model was developed by disabled people to identify and take action against discrimination and to centre equality and human rights. This is in contrast to the traditional medical model, which presents disability as the individual medical problem, focusing on what a person cannot do because of a particular physical or neurological or psychological characteristic centred on the care or cure and welfare instead of accessibility and independence and inclusion, and places the responsibility and burden on disabled individual. The social model seeks to change society in order to accommodate people living with impairment. It does not seek to change the person with the impairment to accommodate society. Under the social model, disability is looked through as a social construct created by barriers which can be changed and removed, providing a dynamic and positive model which identifies the cause of exclusion and inequality and proposes a solution. It is on society to make changes, not on people living with impairments. For the individual and the organisation to understand and then make the adjustments required to stop marginalising and excluding people whose bodies and minds don't comply with society's idea of what is standard and acceptable. The social model makes clear distinction between an impairment, a condition, illness, or a loss and a lack of function. And disability is the barrier and discrimination. It also demonstrates that people from different impairment groups far from having separate issues and interests, face common problems, such as the lack of access to information and communication. The environment excludes and discrimination in employment and empowers them, along with their allies, to find common solutions to remove these barriers. It moves away from a position of blaming the individual for their flaws and argues that impairment is and always will be present in society, and suggests that the only logical outcome is to plan and organise society in a way that includes rather than excludes people living with impairment. Here's the leader's challenge, and as an agenda setters. So my ask is, see disability as part of the human fabric and as part of the tapestry of humanity, and the thread that connects rather than segregates. What if, by the way we treat each other and by the way we talk to each other, we create environments that persuade that guardian in us into action? Not order it into action, but simply made it easier for people to embrace their inner guardian. In many cases, this means removing the fear most of us live with, and the fear of embarrassment, the fear of failure, and the fear of getting fired. It means creating environments free from fear that instead are safe for that inner guardian to be summoned forth. So we know that the environment has a large impact on people's behaviours, yet as leaders, we are often too quick to blame the behaviour on the person rather than the culture we've created. This is easy because while people are responsible for their behaviour, leaders are responsible for the culture, which also leads us to discover how do we use people who have in turn used their lived experience to inform, shape and lead their areas of concern through their lives and work. The sense of urgency and the culture more broadly is the leader's responsibility. Let's think about these 4 ways you as the leader can affect culture. 1. Leaders control the physical environment. 2. Replacing small tables with large ones in the lunchroom results in people interacting with more people in their company and a wider transfer of information across the business. This is more effective than giving a lecture on sharing information. Leaders model the behaviour, and I remember there was a study from the 1960s, and it was about children saw adults play with a Bobo doll, which basically is a large self-righting inflatable doll, like a bowling pin. And children who observed adults playing nicely also played nicely when they were left alone with the doll. Children who observed adults being aggressive towards dolls were also aggressive when left alone. It's important that the leader lives the culture, because the actions of the leader will have more impact than the words and slogans and posters in your environment. Leaders implement mechanisms that will rewire the brain. For example, how we communicate about the wider us, but eventually felt more and more like a team. This was because the team mates refer to each other as us and the rest of the world as they. But it also works the other way round. People who refer to each other as us will see others as part of their team. Leaders embed the DNA of the culture in their policy documents. And I think this is the tool most underused by leaders. Let's say a leader wants people to take the initiative and be empowered. I think that a simple change to the delegation of authority documents stating clearly decision-making authority of people lower in the organisation will do much more to create a culture of empowerment than speeches. Remember, the environment matters a lot to our behaviour, more than we generally give it credit for. Shaping the environment is the leader's responsibility, and how you do yours affects the culture of your organisation. Let's imagine a workplace where everyone engages, contributes their full intellectual capacity and potential, a place where people are healthier, happier, because they have more control over their lives and work, and a place where everyone can flourish. Think about it, a place where people feel valued, proud to be part of something bigger than themselves. People know the organisation's goals and thoughtfully contribute towards achieving them. People feel inspired to take responsibility and have the authority to rise to the occasion. The organisation's success is on the shoulders of all people, not simply the leaders. There are leaders at every level. And I just want to say, the last point, disability issues are a human rights issue. Thank you very much.